Would you
needing
not
water,
think it is
things like
not an
that.
occupational hazard if someone is being forced to work 8 hours under 120 degrees
And
without
employers-
getting regular breaks?
And employers are already taking action to
So
protect
you
workers
believe
from heat.
employers should have the responsibility to decide
have a
who dies and who
responsibility to keep-
survives in the heat?
They have a responsibility to keep their workers safe, most definitely, but that is
Before we
separate.
get started, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for Capital Truthline, because this is where facts beat feelings and the Constitution still matters.
Why do you, Ms. Molino, why do you believe workers suffering heat exhaustion is not a work hazard?
Excuse me. It is a public health hazard, and OSHA is limited by what the authority that Congress has delegated it. OSHA has authority to regulate and oversee occupational hazards.
Yeah, standards,
And
right?
Occupational hazards.
Yes. And why
Getting
would you not,
hot,
why would you
needing
not
water,
think it is
things like
not an
that.
occupational hazard if someone is being forced to work 8 hours under 120 degrees
And
without
employers-
getting regular breaks?
And employers are already taking action to
So
protect
you
workers
believe
from heat.
employers should have the responsibility to decide
have a
who dies and who
responsibility to keep-
survives in the heat?
They have a responsibility to keep their workers safe, most definitely, but that is separate and apart from
So you're
OSHA's
saying
authority.
those employers who have not done that, who have seen people die at their workplaces in places like Texas, it's just because they're bad people and we shouldn't have the responsibility of protecting the workers is what I hear. I yield
That's
back.
not what I'm saying, but thank you.
I thank the gentlelady. I recognize now the gentleman from California, Mr. Kiley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the last Congress, this committee held the Biden administration accountable for its anti-worker agenda. And now that we've turned the page, we have an incredible opportunity to enable and facilitate the pro-worker, pro-small business, pro-growth policies that are coming from the new administration. But this committee's oversight proved particularly critical when President Biden made the baffling decision to elevate the state labor secretary with the very worst record in the country to be his Secretary of Labor. And our committee actually brought in Ms. Julie Su for a hearing at that time where we were able to show how she was the Secretary of Labor for the state, California, that had the single highest rate of unemployment in the entire country in her tenure, first out of 50, had the lowest rate of wage growth in the entire country, 50 out of 50, and had the highest rate of real poverty in the country, first out of 50. And then that she also was the architect of the most disgraceful, notorious labor law in modern US history, that being AB 5. Now, after she came in for a hearing here, the US Senate refused to confirm her. Her nomination was stopped with bipartisan opposition. But of course, the Biden administration chose to lawlessly keep her at the helm of the Labor Department for the entire tenure of the administration. And in that position, she did indeed attempt to federalize the failed policies of California by implementing a new rule that was designed to mimic the effects of AB 5 in California as far as limiting the freedom of independent contractors. Now, the good news is that that regulation has not yet wreaked the sort of damage that we had anticipated, perhaps because of the illegitimacy of Ms. Su's tenure at the helm of the Labor Department, which shattered all records, by the way, for an acting unconfirmed secretary. But nevertheless, we still find ourselves in the situation where that regulation is on the books, where there continues to be uncertainty as far as the livelihoods of independent contractors, the ability of small businesses to work for them. So in order to resolve this issue, to provide certainty, to protect the rights of workers and the and countless enterprises across the country, I've introduced the Modern Worker Empowerment Act, which would specify that the classification standard for an independent contractor comes down to two intuitive factors. Number one being the degree of control of the hiring entity over the work performed, and the second being the opportunity for profit or loss, or the opportunities and risks inherent to entrepreneurship. This is a pretty common sense standard designed to say that if you truly are running your own enterprise, then you don't need to be forced into a W-2 classification. In addition to that, I've introduced the Modern Worker Security Act. So we have the Modern Worker Empowerment Act and the Modern Worker Security Act. This legislation is designed to encourage the use of portable benefits, which will provide a level of a social safety net for independent workers that they can take with them from job to job, things like health care and retirement savings. The problem in existing law is that if associations or companies or other groups choose to provide those benefits, then it's kind of like no good deed goes unpunished. You've had that then used by regulators to say, oh, look at that, you're providing benefits, you must be an employer. We're going to force this to be considered a W-2 arrangement, which is not what either party to the transaction wants. So it's had this chilling effect on the ability to offer portable benefits and for workers to have that measure of security. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to move both of those measures through this committee and provide more certainty to millions of folks across the country. I think this will have a tremendous impact on our workforce. And maybe with the remaining time, Ms. Melito, since you mentioned this, the labor regulation, the independent contractor regulation in your testimony, could you just give us a sense of how damaging this uncertainty has been for small businesses?
Yeah, it's created a lot of headaches for business owners who cannot determine whether or not somebody they've hired once a week to come in and do their website improvement needs to be, as you put it, a W-2 person, or because they also do website work for other businesses, can I pay them, as an independent contractor? Because they have their own business, they have their own business card there. The Empowerment Act that you have introduced would be very helpful on that front in codifying that simple, very simple two-factor test that the Trump rule had.
All right, let's talk about what really happened in this hearing, because the media spin is already warming up. What you just watched was a textbook example of modern left-wing politics colliding head-on with reality and losing. Representative Ilhan Omar tried to turn a congressional hearing into a dramatic moral performance, hoping emotion would overpower the law. It didn't work. Her entire line of questioning was built on a trap. She wanted soundbite. She wanted a viral clip where she could claim Republicans and employers want workers to suffer in the heat. But instead, she ran straight into someone who actually understands how the law functions. Ms. Melito calmly explained a basic truth that too many politicians either don't understand or pretend not to. Federal agencies are limited by the authority Congress gives them. OSHA regulates occupational hazards. It does not regulate weather. That's not cruelty. That's the Constitution. That's separation of powers. That's how a nation of laws works, instead of a nation of feelings. But notice what Omar did next. Instead of engaging with the legal point, she pivoted to a moral attack. She implied that if heat isn't classified a certain way under OSHA, then employers are basically choosing who lives and who dies. That's not an argument. That's manipulation. That's political theater designed for social media, not serious governance. Ms. Melito never once said employers shouldn't protect workers. In fact, she said the exact opposite. Employers already have a responsibility to keep workers safe. But responsibility does not magically grant unlimited federal power. That distinction matters whether progressives like it or not. This is the bigger issue with today's left. They believe that if they feel strongly enough about something, the law should bend to match their emotions. They treat federal agencies like blank checks, ignoring statutory limits and constitutional boundaries. That mindset is dangerous. It's how bureaucracies grow out of control and liberty shrinks. And then, just to underline the contrast, the hearing moved into a discussion about labor policy, independent contractors, and the damage caused by radical regulations like California's AB 5. We heard how government overreach crushed flexibility, hurt small businesses, and threatened the livelihoods of millions of independent workers. That's not theory. That's lived reality. The proposed reforms discussed were simple, common-sense ideas. Clear rules, freedom to work, and portable benefits that don't punish businesses for trying to help workers. That's what pro-worker policy actually looks like. Not performative outrage. Not regulatory chaos. Not Washington deciding it knows better than everyone else. What this exchange really exposed is a divide in America. On one side, you have people who believe in limits, law, and accountability. On the other, you have politicians who think hearings are additions and emotions are policy. Ms. Melito stayed calm, factual, and professional. Representative Omar resorted to strawman attacks when the law didn't cooperate. This is why channels like Capitol Truthline exist. To cut through the noise. To remind people that facts still matter, the Constitution still matters, and no politician gets to rule by vibes. Description: